to corroborate these reports other than the Kuwaiti resistance?
The vast majority of the information has been from Kuwaiti resistance. There's been some corroborating information, and you've seen the same descriptions that I have. It's been announced on television and so on, but rounding up of relatively young men, rape, decapitation of women, summarily executing youngsters in front of their parents. Those are the reports. Hopefully they're not as bad as we've heard, but as we move closer, we're probably going to find out.
Is there any independent corroboration of the killings, at least?
Not yet.
Not.
General?
Yes, sir. Second row.
Yeah, could you draw any distinction between the fighting inside Kuwait and the fighting in Iraq? Has there been any difference in the character of resistance and the success of the U.S. forces or in the ground taken?
Well, to the best of my knowledge, as a matter of fact, the fighting against the Republican Guards hasn't been any stiffer than the fighting against anybody else over there. So it looks like a piece of whole cloth. Although a lot of divisions inside Kuwait proper have been declared combat ineffective, I think most of them are infantry, dismounted infantry divisions.
Just to follow up to that, to what extent are you administering the territory which you're taking? Assuming that some of it is populated, even if only by a few Iraqis. Who is governing them? Who's in charge in this territory?
We're not administering any territory inside Iraq. We're taking measures to protect our force inside Iraq and Kuwait, and we're not into military government. Yes, ma'am.
General, could you...
Go ahead.
You mentioned that you've got some captured documents. Can you tell us at all what you think the forces are being told, if anything? You mentioned a confused situation on the battlefield. Are there orders to resist going out? Are they being told to retreat to Basra? What are they being
The document that I mentioned is dated. It was instructions to the Corps commanders dated the 17th of January. Remember, that's the day that the bombing campaign started. And it was general instructions about how to fight the battle. My reference to confusion is what we can sense on the battlefield right now. We've apparently been very effective in damaging their ability to communicate and to coordinate. So they are confused with regard to what the threat is on the left or the right or the front or the back.
Could they even set up an organized withdrawal if they wanted to?
They're trying to right now, and we're helping them in being unsuccessful in that. Yes, sir.
On what happened with the Scuds yesterday, after 40 or so successful Scud launches, was there complacency by the troops? Did something happen? Was there a mistake made, or can you tell us what happened?
I think there was clearly not complacency. There is an investigation ongoing in Saudi Arabia right now. I don't know what the facts are, so it would be wrong of me to conjecture. I am certain that the results of that investigation will be made known as soon as it's completed, just as we have with the other unfortunate incidents that have occurred.
There are reports in Ohio and Pennsylvania newspapers saying that only 3 families of the 28 dead have been notified at this point as of this morning. Is there a problem reaching these families, or is there something that you can tell us about that?
Not to my knowledge. The initial major effort, of course, was put into trying to save those who were still alive and trying to take care of those who were dead. I'm sure the notifications will proceed quite reasonably, and I hope what you're saying is good news for some of the families there.
Is that unusually slow?
No, I wouldn't think so.
General,
yes, sir.
Admiral, can you tell us what's the situation with Hussein and his high command? Where are they? And there's a report today that Hussein has a jet ready to go. Will you get him?
A, to the best of our knowledge, he's still in the vicinity of Baghdad. B, we would not conjecture on what we would do if he tried to get out of the country.
Are jets that fly, are Iraqi jets that fly in the area still being targeted?
Of course. Yes, by all means, absolutely. Yes, sir. Get over here.
General Kelly, what are your major concerns right now? What could still go wrong?
There could be a concerted attack on the part of the Republican Guard and other forces that are still in the theater. Remember, they represent a viable military force, so we have to be very vigilant to make sure that doesn't happen. We are being very vigilant to make sure that doesn't happen. We have to be careful that units that appear to be retreating, and this has happened before, don't turn around and start shooting at us. We will be careful of that. So I think the major concern is keep our guard up and make sure we don't let down, and we're not going to let down.
What about chemical weapons?
We have not seen chemical weapons used to date. There have been no indications, don't think, in the theater that they're present. However, during the Iran-Iraq War, a technique that they used was to pull their forces back when they were getting ready to use chemical weapons. So again, we'll remain vigilant there. Go ahead.
Just to offer a follow-up, what could happen. Recall the Republican Guard is reportedly the best. There are 8 divisions, and they're all located just outside Kuwait along the northern border. That's 3 armor, 4 infantry, and 1 special forces division. So it is not, that element has not been defeated, so they could certainly mount some kind of an attack.
General?
Let me just clarify one thing. I mentioned an A6 was shot down in my initial briefing. I'm told that's not correct, so I'll get you an update on that and give it to you as soon as I get it. You want to follow up? Yeah, go ahead.
Is it true, Admiral, that the Republican Guard is deployed on his own exercise grounds over there?
I'm sorry, on what?
I've heard stories according to which the Republican Guard is deployed on the area where they've been exercising for years, and the place has been very well prepared for that.
They have exercised in the place in which they're currently located. That's correct.
General?
For a long period of time, but we feel fully confident that we can deal with that. Yes, sir.
Has there been any evidence of any Iraqi units that have followed President Bush's prescription and have attempted to withdraw without their weapons?
There are many examples of Iraqi units that have laid down their weapons and surrendered.
I understand that, but are any trying to just walk back north?
Not to my knowledge. Do you know? No. Yes, sir, over here.
Yeah. Can you assess the damage to the Kuwaiti oil production facilities? I mean, how long will it take to put out these oil well fires? What percentage of wells have been set afire? What will it do to their production ability?
Well, this is about half of the oil wells in Kuwait, and a lot of the infrastructure has been damaged, the gathering centers, the oil tanks, and so on. So we're talking probably months to years to totally recover, and we're talking weeks to months to put out the fires.
Yes, ma'am.
General, have the goals of the war changed since you've had such battlefield success? And did you always intend to take a portion of Iraqi territory and hold it as a negotiating tool?
We have not taken a portion of Iraqi territory to hold. We are maneuvering on Iraqi territory because our mission was to drive the Iraqi army out of Kuwait. Our mission has not changed. If you want to talk about goals, go ask National Security Council or the State Department, but our mission has not changed. That's to drive the Iraqi army out of Kuwait, and that's what we're doing. Yes,
General, we know you're not in the business of releasing body counts, but can you give us any estimate as to the number of Iraqi casualties at this point?
No, and the reason I can't do that is because I simply don't know. And that kind of information, again, is tactical and would come out of the theater.
General?
Yes, ma'am.
General, what steps are being taken to get the prisoners of war out of Iraq or try and get access to them? Is there any progress in that?
Getting them out of Iraq. They're being retrograded to the rear because there are so many of them. That's going slow. Just getting enough.
Sorry, the Allied.
Oh, the Allied prisoners of war. To this point, the Iraqis who have made statements about what it is they would like to do have not indicated to us in any way that I know of what prisoners of war they have, and have not talked about any exchanges of prisoners of war.
General?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. You mentioned earlier about Kuwait, and it's now nightfall then. There now. What happens when dawn arises? What are you looking for in terms of, are you worried about booby traps? You mentioned a few soldiers. What else might you be worried about when you move into Kuwait City?
Well, through the night and into the day tomorrow, we will continue to press the battle. We are still engaged in combat, and we will not let up. I mentioned earlier that the Marines may have slowed down for the night because they're tired and they've been attacking for 3 days, but they'll be back up and at them very early, I can assure you, and the other forces that are there, many of them will be attacking through the night.
Are you worried about booby traps in the city?
You're always worried about booby traps, but that doesn't stop you from pursuing your objective. Yes, ma'am.
You have over 30,000 prisoners, you've said, and we were told that you're having trouble dealing with that many prisoners. What happens if you get 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 more, which, based on the...
We'll continue to deal with them, and we'll continue to have difficulty, but the difficulty is a transportation difficulty. The prisoners are still going to be properly cared for, they're still going to be fed, and I will still assure you that they're better off now than they were then. Yes, sir. Yeah.
If Saddam Hussein were to remain in power, would those prisoners be repatriated?
That's policy issue to be addressed in the future. I'm certain sooner or later there would be, but I'm not the guy that does that. Yes, sir.
Sir, of the 8 Iraqi Republican Guard divisions that are left that you still call a viable fighting force, can you quantify at all how many are still in their fortifications, how many are left there to put up a fight?
Mike, can you address that?
4 infantry divisions are still intact because they're a little further to the north. The 2 armored divisions and the mechanized division have been attacked, and the level of destruction is we're trying to sort that out at the present time. Probably the mechanized division has suffered the most attrition, and the 2 Republican Guard armored divisions the least attrition. And I would put a general figure on it to say they've suffered damage, and the mech division has suffered significant damage.
General Kelly?
Yes, sir.
General, how many people are we talking about in terms of the Republican Guard? You gave us the number of divisions, et cetera, but ballpark figure, how many people is that? 100,000? 100,000?
That's what they started with. I don't know what it is